Wow. How many of you have attempted to learn another language but kind of just gave up at the end? Oh, wow. Okay. Now, I want all of you to give this thought your full attention, okay? Just imagine for a moment what your life would be like without language. Just think about it. It's an uncomfortable thought, isn't it? Language is such an integral part of our lives that we cannot fathom living without it. Yet I'm not sure if we just realize how wonderful language is. I often compare knowing what a language is to knowing computer science, because it's one thing to know how to use a language, and it's another thing to know what it is, to know the underlying parts and how they work together. I only have 15 minutes today, more or less, and if I don't manage to encourage you to learn that language that you've been wanting to learn for years, I want to at least help you see what you may have been missing for a big part of your life. Language is one of the natural wonders of the human world. I don't think anyone would dare deny that. Believe it, we would be nowhere near where we are today without words. Impossible. It's analogous to an engineer trying to design and build something without numbers. Like numbers, words give us a framework upon which to understand the world. And what strikes me is that words are inherently meaningless. I mean, if you think about it, the only reason why that furry, moody creature that is just so cute and condescending and at the same time, when it pops into your head when you hear the word cat, is because, and only because, it's been agreed upon by all speakers of this language that that sound should mean that. Aside from that, it's really just squeaks and pops, isn't it? Just compressed air. K, a, t. But as arbitrary as these sounds seem, they have this peculiar ability to put ideas, images, sounds in our heads and change how we feel about the world. The benefits to learning languages are numerous. Studies have confirmed time and time again that learning another language can boost cognitive functioning. You can think of it as sort of like a full body workout for the brain. It even helps delay dementia by 4.5 years or something crazy like that. And of course, it's going to improve your job prospects, probably help you get that girl or guy that you want. But these are the more practical benefits. What I really want to focus on today are the less tangible and more spiritual benefits. And I also really want to say this, that there is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to pursue something for the sake of it rather than as a means to another ends. I want to learn languages that I know I will probably never use on a daily basis in the future. And people come up to me and they ask me, why do you want to learn this? Why do you want to learn Icelandic? Why do you want to learn Russian? Why do you want to learn that? And I want to ask them, since when does usefulness grant us the permission to do something? We don't ask the same question when it concerns music or the arts in general, because everyone, and I mean everyone, can find something transcendent and beautiful in those forms of human expression. And for some of us, languages can make us feel the same way. Learning a language not only enables us to exchange stories and ideas, it opens up a whole new cultural realm. Someone once said that to switch between languages is like traveling between different cultures, and I love that analogy. I'm sure that there are plenty of bilingual people in this room, and we all kind of feel a little different when we speak another language, don't we? In the 20th century, the theory of linguistic determination emerged to help explain this phenomenon. Basically, this theory held that the language we speak determines the thoughts that we have. But as we know it, that's too much of a stretch, isn't it? I think we can all agree that our thoughts are way too flexible to be controlled by language like that. Furthermore, we routinely engage in wordless, non-symbolic thought. For example, when we think about, ooh, what do I want to eat tonight? Or can I survive procrastinating on my homework for another 4 hours when it's already like 10 o'clock at night? We are engaging in wordless, non-symbolic thinking. But language does color our personality. No, it may not change our fundamental beliefs, but it teases out certain aspects of a personhood. Every language has its own personality because language is an organic entity. It embodies culture and changes as culture changes. And so when we speak another language, it automatically imbues us with that certain energy. And that energy comes from the feelings and images that we associate with that culture. Researchers found that Russian bilinguals are more likely to discuss individualism when they use English. And so by that, does that mean if you speak French, then you're more likely to huff and puff, complain about life, smoke all day, because as you know, the French are all about that je ne sais quoi, c'est la vie kind of attitude? If you speak Japanese, then are you less likely to live on the streets and swear at random people you don't know? And is the exact opposite true if you speak Russian? Well, it's going to depend on a few things, like the stereotypes that you have, the amount of self-control that you have, and your knowledge. Aside from giving us a new outlook on life, learning another language can also give us new words that we never thought existed and never knew we needed. Oh, I skipped one slide, never mind. German is an excellent example of this because the language is so rich and expressive. The Germans seem to have words for everything. The Germans have words like Handschuh, Schneeballwerfer, handshoe, glove, snowball, thrower, or a coward who criticizes from the distance. And my personal favorite, which is Worstling-Börsen, worsening by trying to improve, and Weltschmerz, or world pain/sadness, a feeling of deep hopelessness when you think about the state of the world. And where would English be without words like Schadenfreude and Wanderlust? Language is also a window into human history. History, oh my gosh, ew! I know that a lot of us associate history with memorizing names and dates, especially since we have to get the A on the upcoming exams, right? But if you give it a chance, you'll get to experience times and places you've never got to experience firsthand. Language can reveal interactions that took place centuries ago in a world so different, yet eerily familiar, because deep down, we all want and fear the same thing, don't we? And by studying words, we can see what our ancestors feared and what they cherished. For example, the word disaster really just means ill-starred, aster being related to asteroid. Boom. And anyone remotely familiar with Western literature knows that the star is associated with fate. And there you have it, ill-fated. Now let's look at another example, malaria, which means bad air in Latin, mal aria. And probably because people thought that diseases were caused by foul air. No, they really thought that. And English, water, is actually related to Russian voda, and unsurprisingly, vodka. I don't know what that says about the Russians. And I know that all of you in this room can speak English, but how well do you know this language that you speak? Did you know that English 1,000 years ago sounded nothing like the English that we speak today? Well, its distant cousin Icelandic has managed to sound remarkably similar to its ancestor Old Norse. In fact, speakers of Icelandic can understand to a pretty impressive degree the sagas that their Viking ancestors wrote. And you may have suspected that words like egg, skill, skin, skull, and window, and even the pronouns them, come from the Vikings, who, by the way, conquered a part of England and founded this place called Jorvik, or as we know it in English, York. So New York really is just New Jorvik. English has borrowed and looted, stolen many words from many languages. And there's even a saying that English is three languages disguised as one, wearing a trench coat, or in my imagination, a French coat, because nothing is more French in the Germanic family than English. Some of you may know this brand, Mont Blanc, which means white mountain, as you can tell by the tip of the pen. And it's no coincidence that blanc sounds like blank, as in a blank sheet of paper. English actually got the word blank from French, even though those two words are Germanic in origin. And this may be a little bit surprising because, as we all know it, French is a Romance language, right? But it has a considerable amount of influence from this ancient, now extinct, very German-like language known as Frankish, which was spoken by the Franks. And these people ruled over what is now France after the fall of the Roman Empire. And as you may have guessed, they gave France its name, and they also gave English the word franc, as in honest, because their name means free. Language is wonderful and all that, and I believe that we all secretly have this desire to speak another language. But is it true that some of us just don't have what it takes? Because I hear a lot of people tell me, oh, I'm just too dumb, I'm not talented enough to learn another language. Is that true? I can assure you that that is simply not the case. It has very little, if not nothing, to do with how mentally gifted you are, and everything to do with how willing you are to put in the effort necessary. As simple as that. And it's understandable that we become discouraged when we see young children pick up languages just like that, right? So magical, as it seems. But what a lot of us fail to realize is that, well, we have a lot of responsibilities to juggle. Children don't have to deal with the same amount of work. What did they do? You look at them. And they learn the languages that they do so quickly because they hear those languages every day, all day. Whereas adults have already mastered the languages that they use and hear every day. And so when they learn another language, it's not because they do, but it's because they want to, and those are two very different scenarios. With that in mind, we don't really have an excuse in this digital age, do we? We have the luxury of having access to almost all human knowledge out there, and what do we do with this sacred power? Yes, we watch fail videos because Schadenfreude, and we scroll through our Instagram feeds because Wanderlust. So when we say we don't really have time, we really mean that we don't have spare time aside from all that. And guess what? That leaves practically no room for anything that feels like a chore. And you shouldn't expect success with language learning if it feels like something that you have to block out time in a day for. Believe me, language learning is very time-consuming. And we also have to be honest to ourselves about the source of the problem. Because if we keep telling ourselves that it's just our shortcomings, oh, we're just not smart enough, then guess what? We're not even going to have the guts to begin to change. It's better to tell ourselves that we don't want to do something rather than we cannot. Because if the opportunity presents itself, we are not going to think, oh, I just can't do this, but rather, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And the latter opponent is far less daunting because it can be overcome, right? We have to understand that we have a lot more potential than we think we have and allow ourselves to have. And there are ways to make this process of language learning far easier. One method that I swear by that I want to share today is learning words in chunks. Because believe it, our speech is made of chunks. And such chunks in English include heavy rain, strong tea, how do you do? We don't say powerful tea or big rain, even though they make perfect sense to us. They just sound kind of unnatural. And we ask, how do you do when we greet someone, even though it's just one word away from how do you do this? Have you ever thought about how weird the phrase is? Anyways, so the key to producing natural speech is then to absorb words in chunks. A renowned British linguist once said this: You shall know a word by the company it keeps. Yes, we become familiar with the silly quirks, the personality of words by observing the context that they're in. And all languages have irregularities, have patterns. English is not exceptional. That sometimes just don't make much sense. So don't feel too bad if you keep forgetting them at the beginning, because studies have found that remembering these patterns actually rely more on unconscious processing, rote memorization, repeated exposure. And so repetition is going to strengthen those neural connections and help you learn these patterns. Look, if thousands of polyglots out there can do it, if your younger self could do it, you definitely can do it. I want to urge all of you to give language learning some time, or at least give language a thought, because I really believe that its beauty and significance deserve to be understood and felt, and I hope this time has been that window of opportunity for you. Language is a legacy of our ancestors' cultures, their mental lives, their interactions, and it's a legacy that we're going to transmit into the future. So even if you have no intention of learning another language, I hope that you will walk away with a new or renewed appreciation for words. Thank you. Okay.